Good afternoon, guys. Long time no see. I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of silly excuses. I do plenty of that over on the Twill Talks channel, so if you'd like to see that, by all means, head over in that direction. To sum it up, I've been gone with motivational issues and just lack of time. That's what I always say, and that's what I'm sticking to it. Today, however, we're going to do something a little bit different from the norm. I'm not doing news. If you want to see some news videos that have been done recently, of course, check out the video description. A couple of guys, Swathe, Linux for You and Me, and Infinitely Galactic have all done news videos recently, so I highly recommend that you check those out. I will, of course, have links to those below, like I said. Today, however, in the spirit of Halloween and October and just the fact that I don't actually own a desktop computer at this point, long story, I talk about it in the second channel, Twill Talks video. Basically, my cousin needed a computer and he needed one with the identical specs to what I had, so I sold it to him at a very fair price, which put me without a desktop computer for about a month now. So, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be building the Franken-Puter. So, I determined recently that I had the components to build a computer with just a couple of things missing. I wanted something very low power, but something that I could leave on all the time, wouldn't draw a lot of power, wouldn't make a lot of heat. So I bought a motherboard that was relatively inexpensive with an Atom processor on it. This is actually the board itself. It's got the Intel Atom D525 dual-core processor on it. It's all Intel. It's relatively inexpensive. Again, very low power, low heat, and it should work out very well for what I'm wanting to do. However, I didn't want to invest in any more parts than that because I'd already invested a little bit to upgrade my laptop. So I took the components left over from the laptop and, well, I'll just show you what we're going to be doing today. Okay, so over on this end of the table, we have the components that came out of the old computer. You see here we've got a case. It was a custom-built case I did a few years back. Actually, I think as far back as 2003. So we've got a motherboard that had an AMD Athlon XP 2600 on it, I believe. There's the back plate it pulled out with it. It had an IDE CD burner, an IDE DVD ROM drive, and sorry, focusing is going to be difficult on this. Had an ATI graphics card, again, very dated at this point. It's an AGP card. Had a modem of all things. There we go. Floppy drive. Yeah, that's all the stuff that came out of the inside. It still does have a power supply, and I think it's 300 watts, but I'm not sure. Not going to be utilizing that much. Here again is the new motherboard that's going into the system. Let's get a little focus there. There we go. D525MW Intel motherboard. It's got an Atom processor on it that's dual core. Here's the hard drive that came out of my laptop, my MacBook Pro. It's a 320 gig Hitachi 5400 RPM drive, so it should be very low power, but very halfway decent performance for what I'm going to be doing. We have 4 gigabytes of RAM. This is DDR3 PC 1033, something like that. Not sure. I don't know. I've gotten out of the hardware game lately, so I can't really remember at the point. But we should have a 4 gigabyte hard drive, 4 gigabytes of RAM, 320 gigabyte hard drive, dual core Intel Atom processor. Again, apologies for that. And then because the system is so old, the power supply does not have any SATA connectors on it. So I had to dig out of my old storage box a bunch of old SATA power converters. So let's go ahead and start throwing this all in the case, and we'll see where we come here in a little while. I'll put the board in and do some tests on it, and then I'll show you where I've gone with it. Alrighty, at this point we have the motherboard in the case. You see, relatively small compared to the actual size of the case. Got the new back plate on the back of the case, so time to put in some RAM, hook up all the power, and put the hard drive in. So, back in a minute. And as if by magic, everything is in the case and assembled, at least as assembled as it's going to be for the time being. May have to change my mind and actually install a DVD reader / burner in the future. For now, I'm just going to try to go without one for saving power and saving space and heat and everything. And I'm going to try to install using a USB drive. But, as you can see, I've got the front panel connectors all hooked up there. That was not too bad to do. I've got the front USB connector. Over here is the audio connector. The case that I'm using is a very old case, but relatively inexpensive and very sturdily built. So I have stuck with it as long as I can. And it it just, a lot of the connectors were not terribly friendly. Like you see, all of these were separate wires. There were not any plug it in and it all just works kind of things. Other than this, I may go ahead and stick one fan here in the back just to make sure I've got a little bit of airflow, but I mean, it doesn't really require any active cooling, so may not be necessary. Depends on how much sound it's going to end up making as to whether or not I'll use it. As far as the motherboard itself, it did come with this diagram, this little helpful, see if you can see that, there we go, diagram showing the back panel and all the connectors on the motherboard, a full desktop reference showing all of the information about it. Very useful. I didn't actually use this part, I used just the little pinout diagrams. Let's see if I can get it close enough on that. There we go. So that you can see what they looked like and how I ended up using those. There's the front panel. I'll turn this sideways. The front panel USB, you know, basically it wasn't terribly difficult, just a little bit time consuming, and you're blurry again. I'm doing this all manually, so. Anyway, I'm downloading a copy of, I'm going to try Xubuntu or Xubuntu on this just to see how it works out, because I'm familiar with the Ubuntu repos, and I don't know. I could do Arch, I might do Arch, I'm still kind of up in the air. That's a different video entirely though. But for now, it's time to close this up and turn it on, just to make sure everything worked appropriately. So I'll be back with you in just a moment, powering this up. Alrighty, and there we have it. Right out of the box, the first time I turned it on, everything worked. The only thing that did not work is my Mac keyboard, my Apple keyboard that I've been using for a while. However, I did have a spare PS2 keyboard sitting by, and this does come with PS2 ports. So for the time being, I do have that hooked up, and as you can probably see from here, Intel Atom D525, 1.8 gigahertz. We've got the Intel hyper-threading turned on, system memory speeds 800 megahertz, showing 4 gigs of RAM. Got the system date and time set appropriately. It was 1 day off for some reason, but the date and time are correct now. Under here, we've got boot configuration, peripheral. We can set all sorts of stuff up. The key thing that I wanted to keep an eye on, of course, is hardware monitoring. I went ahead and I put a fan in there, but I left it unplugged just to see how the temperatures are going to go. It looks right now like the processor is about 37 degrees Celsius. I checked that against Intel, and they say that it will work up to 100 degrees Celsius, and I'm in a relatively cool basement, so I don't know, that's a little bit warm for my standards, but it's also not terribly loud. I don't know if you can hear it or not. I mean, what I'm hearing right now is the power supply itself. That's about the only noise coming out of it. So if I hook up that other fan, it should stay down in the low 20s, the mid 20s, something like that, until I actually put some load on it. So I probably will end up back with that. I don't know. We'll just see how it goes over the next couple of days or weeks. Other than that, you've got security stuff you can set up. You can tell the power to come back on after the power goes out. Change the boot order, the boot device priority, and all that. And that's about it. I don't actually have a copy of Linux to put on it yet, but I'm downloading it at the moment, so that will probably be the next video, just because I'm going to be working on this with my friend John tonight. One thing I would probably also mention, this motherboard does come with a mini PCI Express slot, so if you happen to have an old laptop laying around that has a mini PCI Express wireless card in it, this would be a great use for that. I believe it does require external antennas though, so I probably will not be using it for that, but if I did decide to turn this into a home theater PC, this would be extraordinarily useful. However, I hope this video was useful for you, just showing some of the stuff you can do with some of your old hardware if you think that you can't have a use for it anymore. It may surprise you. Like I said, a lot of this stuff was just upgrades that I've done here and there, some spare parts I had from years past, and just cobbled everything together, and it does seem to work very well out of the box. The power and reset buttons are working, the ports all seem to be working, and of course, like I said, I will be making another video very shortly showing off just how everything works in terms of running Linux. So, I hope you enjoyed this. As always, thank you for watching. Leave any comments, questions, or suggestions in the comment section down below. But that's all for today. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.